Welcome to the big New Year's Eve show, Montreal and Toronto, Newstalk 1010 and CJAD 800. My name is Dan Delmar, and we're going to dig into some politics now because there is a lot of news today even. We have new poll numbers out and, of course, a lot of uncertainty going on in Ottawa. So coming up, we'll get to your calls and texts on the issue of when the Prime Minister will go, and do you have Carney fever? He wrote in the Globe and Mail today about his vision for Canada. And later in the program, we will talk about a new industry in Canada that is booming, the black soldier fly larvae industry. And we'll also talk about goal setting in 2025 and how to optimize that. So that's all on the way. But first, a political panel now. One from each side, a Liberal and a Conservative. Jonathan Kalles is Vice President at McMillan Vantage, a national public affairs firm. And he is a former advisor to PM Trudeau. Hello, Jonathan.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good.
Neil Drabkin is a lawyer who served as a prosecutor and was a chief of staff in the Harper government. Hello, Neil.
Good afternoon, Dan.
Members of the tribe today, that was kind of an accident, but happy Hanukkah to you both as well.
Same to you guys.
Now let's begin with. I figured we'd do this in an award style, guys. So I'm gonna ask you guys for your nominations for various award categories, and we'll just kind of chat about it. But first, I want to note for Jonathan that poll numbers out today are a little surprising, I think, for a lot of Liberals, and suggest that maybe the next time we do this political panel next year, maybe between an NDP and a Conservative. That might be the more appropriate combination here. But what do you make of the polling that's come out in the last couple of days, Jonathan?
I saw the Angus Reid that you're probably referring to that has the Liberals third. There's also the Weekly Nanos that also came out today that is more in line with what we've seen the last, I don't know, many months. Neither of which bode well for the Liberals. Again, when you see one poll that sort of stands out from all the others, you kind of wait to see if there's a couple more that aren't consistent with it or if it's a bit of an outlier.
Neil, what do you make of the polling from the past couple of days?
Well, this is historic and much of the same. You know, the Conservatives have maintained a large lead over the past year, and the numbers are only getting worse and worse, so that should play on the mind of Justin Trudeau as he reflects on his future. At this rate, they will obviously not form the opposition Liberals, and they may end up in fourth place with no party status if things continue this way. So at this point, an overwhelming majority government for the Conservatives. That's clear. Now, whether the NDP and Jagmeet Singh will finally bring down this government will be interesting to see. Check the fine print. He said that he would bring down the government if the Prime Minister was Justin Trudeau. But what if it's not Justin Trudeau? Is he still prepared to bring down the government? Time will tell.
All right, we'll have to see about that. And as I look at the map from that Angus Reid poll modeled out, it's a lot of blue from coast to coast with a lot of teal in Quebec and some flecks of orange here and there, but certainly very little red. So it is one of the more distressing results Liberals have received in recent history. Let's go to the awards right now. Let's start with Newsmaker of the Year. It could be anyone from across the political spectrum, but the one newsmaker, I feel like you guys are going to have the same answer for this one, who's impacted Canadians the most, at least. Jonathan, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think it's Justin Trudeau who's impacted Canadians the most. I would say that probably if I were asked about the same thing for the States, it very likely would be Joe Biden, at least for most of the year. And, I guess we're all sitting and waiting to see what happens next. But, Justin Trudeau has been in the spotlight now for, well over a decade and 9 years as Prime Minister. And clearly it's coming to a head and we can discuss and pontificate and guess what's going to happen next. But I think that Justin Trudeau's name has been, the name that's been talked about the most in 2024. And I suspect at least at the very beginning of 2025.
And Neil, your Newsmaker of the Year?
I pick Pierre Poilievre. Through his perseverance, he's become the Prime Minister in waiting. And he's grown that lead over the Liberals by over 25 points now. And he's won important by-elections in Toronto St. Paul's. That was historic. And he's demonstrated to Canadians that he's prepared to deal with the issues that they're concerned with, chiefly affordability. So he's the Prime Minister in waiting. We'll have to see how long he has to wait to become the Prime Minister, but he would be my choice for Newsmaker of the Year.
I'm surprised neither of you said Trump. That would have been my vote, and just in terms of how much impact he's had in such a small time before even taking office. Pierre Poilievre hasn't had his impact quite yet, but he will certainly in a few weeks or a few months. But Trump wasn't on your radar, guys, for this one?
Absolutely, he is in terms of south of the border. This is the biggest political comeback in the history of the United States, clearly. And the pollsters were wrong, clearly, because they thought that he would not win this time. But in fact, he pulled it off in an amazing type of way. So we'll see how things play out after January 20th and see what the impact is on here on Canada as well.
Yeah, I think Trump's a fair name out there. I figure I would put him on hold for 2025 and the next 4 years, where I think day to day he will dominate the news, whether it's by what's it called, Truth Social posts or other social media posts or announcements or appointments, and then firings, policy decisions that change all of the unexpected, which we've lived through 4 years of. It always had us on the seat of our pants because we never knew what was going to come next, and I suspect we're in for another 4 years of that.
All right, let's move on to the nicest politician category. Who is the friendliest, warmest politician in Canadian politics, Neil?
Well, in Canadian politics, although he passed away this year, I'll pick the late Brian Mulroney, and we found out just how nice a politician he was by those who eulogized him and who spoke out on media. The fact that he would call up people who were having issues and problems while he was Prime Minister, and just tap into the kinds of issues that they were facing. And we never knew this about him. While he was Prime Minister, of course, he was not liked as much as he presently liked. That usually happens after a politician passes away. But it was very surprising and very enlightening to find out just how much humanity he had. So my pick is late Brian Mulroney. South of the border, I'll give you a quick one, Joe Biden. The nicest politician for relinquishing his candidacy to Kamala Harris, something he perhaps regrets in retrospect.
Indeed. Jonathan, nicest politician in Canada?
Well, I'll go one under the radar. I would say NDP MP Randall Garrison, who's not running again next year, from Vancouver Island. Really somebody who reaches across aisles, has gotten a lot done on a whole bunch of LGBTQ issues, but not in a far left, woke, ideological, but more in a practical way of just making a difference, whether it was, being part of a group of people who got, us to ban conversion therapy, the blood donor ban on gay men, things like that. He was able to get a lot done, and he's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And if you want a little bit more notoriety, I guess I would go for Bill Blair, or somebody in cabinet who's just a gentleman and somebody that people just genuinely like. And he's done a pretty good job at the fence in the last year and a bit, trying to make a difference after many years of inaction in that department.
I would throw my nomination behind Michael Chong, Conservative MP. He's just extremely professional, doesn't succumb to some of the yelling and the hooting and hollering that happens in Parliament, knows his files inside out. I just think he's a great example for a lot of his colleagues. It's a really respectable member of Parliament.
I think it's a good one, too.
Let's go to most problematic politician. 30 seconds each. Neil, who's the most problematic in your eyes? I
think that's obvious. It's Justin Trudeau. Okay. And that's a view that's shared by the vast majority of Canadians at this time. He didn't tap into the issues that concern the citizens of this country. And as a result thereof, he's paying the consequences in the polls. And tied with him, though, is Jagmeet Singh, because he's certainly been an enabler of Justin Trudeau. He tore up that agreement a while ago, and he said he would vote down the government, but he certainly has not done that. So he hasn't lived up to his word.
Political awards panel. Jonathan Kalles is the vice president at McMillan Vantage, a national public affairs firm, former advisor to PM Trudeau. Neil Drabkin is a lawyer who served as a federal prosecutor and was a chief of staff in the Harper government. And Jonathan and Neil, well, I think we were at the most problematic politician, and I got Neil's nomination there. No surprise. Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh is an honorable mention there. Jonathan Kalles, who is the most problematic politician in Canada in your view?
Well, I'm kind of surprised, almost disappointed that Neil didn't didn't pick on, I think, his least favorite Liberal, and that would be Melanie Joly. And he and I have discussed her on panels before. I think she probably would have been moved out of Foreign Affairs had the initial plan for a shuffle gone forward before Chrystia Freeland resigned. And I would have probably had a hard time disagreeing with him. So if he's not going to pick Melanie Joly, and he did give an honorable mention to Jagmeet Singh, I'm going to go with Jagmeet Singh is my main one. And maybe not for the same reasons as him. I think his is more just disappointment that he hasn't helped bring down the Liberal government. Mine is more just an overall failure as a political leader. I mean, you're seeing a government that's at one of the lowest rates you'll see any incumbent government, and one of the main opposition parties, one that should be able to pick up progressive voters, has actually gone down in the polls or stayed basically at the same level. We'll see which of these polls rings true going forward. But his ineptitude, as Neil said at the opening of this segment, we don't even know what he's going to do now in his latest threat to bring down the government, because I don't even know if he knows. And you're seeing dissension within his own party. Charlie Angus has said he won't support bringing down the government. When he initially said he was going to bring it down, he had a different statement than his House leader, Peter Julian. It's been an amazing run of, 6 years as leader that I don't even think he knows what he stands for. It's shocking to see somebody so inept. So he would be my most problematic politician of the year.
You mentioned Charlie Angus. We did request to have him on the program today to maybe explain or give us a clue as to what his intentions could be, because if he's starting a bit of a rebellion within the NDP, that could not bring down the government and affect our democracy in a serious way. But no answer from Mr. Angus, so that's unfortunate. Neither of you mentioned Randy. Don't you think Randy should show up?
Which one?
Exactly, one of the two. Randy Boissonneau, now no longer a minister, but we never got an answer to whether or not there was a second Randy, did we? I don't believe we did. Anywho, let's move on to the premier, shall we? Best premier, folks. Neil, who is the best premier in Confederation at the moment?
I think it's clear. I think it's Doug Ford.
Oh.
Not only has he tapped into the affordability issue in his own province and taken measures to address it, but he's also stepped up and shown leadership, national leadership, when the Prime Minister of this country has gone into hiding to deal with the issue of the tariffs, which is a critical issue for our country. 25% tariff would devastate our exporters, and he has been all over the media in the United States, and he's issued ultimatums to the president, and he's shown a stiff lip, and I think that's leadership. And he assumed that duty not simply because he's the head of the premiers, leader of the premiers right now, but he sensed that there was a vacuum of leadership. It was pretty pathetic to see Justin Trudeau go down to Mar-a-Lago, as they said, 15 seconds after Trump announced that there might be tariffs. And what has he gained from that? We've gained nothing. Continual issues about being the 49th state. I mean, this is an embarrassment. So my pick is Doug Ford. He's shown himself to be a real leader, not only on the provincial scene, but also on the national scene. Jonathan,
best premier?
Well, I don't know if you can say best premier who's sitting at the lowest approval rate of any premier in the entire country at 34%. His party may be leading in the polls, but that also brings into question a split opposition. But, I think that Doug Ford is done an effective job going on American TV. I don't think Justin Trudeau going on Fox News is going to help anybody. It's the wrong audience. I think Doug Ford can speak to that audience more appropriately. I'm not sure I agree with Neil's assessment of going to Mar-a-Lago. I think most people think that was the right move, and what will come of it, who knows, but sitting on your hands and doing nothing is not an option. But if we're talking about best premier, let's just say, first and foremost, incumbents not doing well anywhere, provincially, federally, municipally, around the world, in most democracies, incumbents not doing well. The only premier that seems to be popular a year into his term would be the premier of Manitoba, Canoe. And he's actually also been a strong voice amongst premiers when it comes to federal issues, talking about tariffs, talking about defense spending. He hasn't come out as some sort of out in left field progressive premier. He's been very pragmatic, and he's got a lot of people in Manitoba on board. Now, most people in Canada probably don't know what's going on day to day in Manitoba, but a year in an affordability crisis, and the premier's still sitting at 65% approval. He must be doing something right.
I agree. That was my pick too. Was Drabkin of Manitoba, and he is breaking the mold for progressives. He's doing real things. He's talking about real economic issues. He's just getting real, and it's just going past the kind of virtue signaling that we're used to from the NDP, and surprising a lot of people with his with reaching out across the political spectrum. So yeah, I would say Mr. Kalles as well. Now the worst premier in the Union. Neil, what do you think?
Bonjour, hi.
Uh-oh.
François Legault, our own premier here in Quebec, is certainly by far the worst. He has issues with minorities. He's continually trying to divide this province because he's low down in the polls, and he thinks that's going to be a strategy to regain his popularity. In fact, the Parti Québécois is in first place right now, and M. Legault has failed miserably. Our finances, we have an $11 billion deficit in this province. Our healthcare system is in havoc, and they want to cut $1.6 billion from that. So he's earned his place as the worst premier in this country by far. And so he's certainly my choice.
Jonathan?
Well, I think if we're talking about least popular, François Legault is right there with Doug Ford sitting at 36% approval. So, yes, he's really struggling, and his numbers are really tanking. And I think for most Quebecers, a lot of flip-flopping on a bunch of issues. We know about this issue of a third link, a third crossing across the St. Lawrence in Quebec City that he's changed his mind on. I don't know, Neil, if you've kept count, but maybe 3, 4, 5 times, and just being very impulsive on a whole bunch of issues. And yes, a deficit that's record-breaking is also concerning to a lot of people. I'd also throw in an honorable mention to Blaine Higgs, who's no longer premier, but partially because he took one of the biggest demolitions in terms of an incumbent government going, losing his own seat even and really being trounced in the most recent election.
I was kind of leaning towards Danielle Smith because I almost expect a Quebec premier to challenge the Charter and go as far as they can as nationalists. I don't expect it to happen from an Alberta Federalist, and that was disappointing to me, pushing the Constitution and all that and basically encouraging a sort of quasi-sovereignty movement in Alberta. That would be my pick. Lastly, guys, real quick, we're almost out of time. I appreciate your time today. A pool. Let's do a quick pool, and I'll reveal the winner on Twitter later on. But the PM's resignation date. So let's see if we can get an hour prediction here. Neil, when do you think it's going to be?
I think it's going to obviously be before January 29th. He's going to resign. Parliament will be prorogued at that point, and a leadership race will be in at that particular point to start. However, he's given me some doubts in the last couple of days because of his advertisements that we've seen, in which he plays a very prominent role about the plans he has for the new year and the election, which is imminent. So I don't know. At this point, I think he'll be gone by January 29th, but I think it'll take a few more caucuses in the country to tell him it's time to go. Okay,
Jonathan, so your quick prediction. What's the date you're choosing?
I would first say that I think probably I'm still at about 50-50 on whether he will resign or not. I haven't spoken to anybody in the Prime Minister's office or seen him in about 2 weeks, but my gut feeling says that the decision hasn't been made. So they're thinking, he's thinking about what to do, and then people around him are thinking, if I leave, what does it look like?
We've got to run, Jonathan. Give me a date. What do you think?
I think Neil's prediction is probably pretty safe.
Okay, I'm going March 3rd because it's the first business day in International Women's Month. Why not end on a virtue signal? That's my.
And he's a feminist.
And it's exactly end like you started, on a virtue signal. Thank you so much, Jonathan Kalles and Neil Drabkin. All the best for the new year. Happy Hanukkah, guys.